In this video, I want to show you how you can get Resolume on Mac or Windows synced with any ProLink enabled hardware using ShowKontrol. I'm going to include a link to all compatible mixers and players in the description, as well as my gear list and a few other things we're going to talk about later. Before we jump in, I'm going to quickly explain the ShowKontrol UI just so it's not too overwhelming. At some point, I plan on making a more in-depth, complete ShowKontrol guide, but for now, this should be sufficient for the task at hand. In the main menu, you have a few tabs at the top pertaining to licensing, software updates, release notes, and a broken manual. If you click Launch ShowKontrol, it will bring you to the Live tab. This is where you will oversee the software during the show. In this menu, you have 3 layers, 4 decks, and a few different ways to combine them. You can send each deck to the master output by clicking the M located above each of the decks. We will cover this a bit more in the ShowKontrol setup. You can set a deck to layer A or layer B. If you set deck 1 to layer A and deck 2 to layer B, you can jump between them on the master. This is the basic workflow of the live menu. The Viewer tab allows you to monitor the decks. The newest update includes a clock and a timer, and you also have 2 different modes to view in. The Data tab will give you event history, such as recently played tracks on the decks, and the Program tab is new. It used to be 2 tabs called Setlist and Queue, but as you can see, they combined both tabs into Program. We will be using this tab more when I explain OSC. The last few tabs on the right are the menu, the Network tab, which allows you to configure whatever protocols you'll be using, such as TCNet, ArtNet, or OSC, and the Utility and File tab. The File tab is used in conjunction with Program to import and export cue lists, and the Utility tab allows you to configure audio and MIDI settings, as well as some global settings and an option for a web server. Any ProLink enabled hardware can be linked together using CAT cables to allow the hardware to all communicate. In most standard venue setups that are using CDJs, a CAT cable will run from the CDJ network switch on the DJ booth to front of house. This allows operators to interface with the ProLink network. We can make a mock cable run by plugging a CAT cable into the back of the player and the other end of the cable into the ShowKontrol laptop through a USB Ethernet dongle like I have here. You can see the red cable goes back into the CDJ, and we'll just plug this dongle right into the Mac. Keep in mind, for most front of house CAT runs, you are going to be using Cat 6 or Cat 5e, depending on the length. It needs to be a Gigabit connection. Also note, we'll only be seeing information from this one player in ShowKontrol. Since we do not have a standard 4-player 1-mixer setup, this will exclude the faders and a few other small quirks. The adapter can be left as a self-assigned IP in the network settings so it can properly adhere to the players. A good practice is to make sure Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are disabled when they are not in use, and make sure any firewalls are completely disabled. Back in ShowKontrol, we can go into the Network tab and click on ProDjLink. Make sure under Interface you select the NIC that the ProDjLink network is connected to. Under Link Info, you should see an online status with a list of how many devices are connected, in my case, the 1 player. Keep in mind that if multiple ShowKontrol laptops are connected to the network, you have to take a note of the link ID associated with every machine. You want every laptop to have a unique link ID. Under Link Devices, you will get a view of everything that is connected. Normally, you will see 4 players and 1 mixer. If we close the Network tab and we connect a USB to the player, load up a song, you can now see it populate in deck 1 of ShowKontrol. If it does not show up in ShowKontrol or it shows up on the incorrect deck, you may need to unplug everything, including the USB stick, from the CDJ. Hold down the menu button, scroll to ProDjLink, and change the player number to 1 or whatever number you may need. A side note for those who may not have a CDJ to test with, you could click this cogwheel above any of the 4 decks, and under Source, change from ProDjLink to Internal. This will allow you to load files directly from Finder, allowing you to test with audio files instead of a player connection. Once you have a track loaded up, you have a few options. You can master the deck it is loaded onto, which will put the deck in the ShowKontrol master slot. The master slot indicates what track or deck is being used to generate the master clock. If we master the deck that has the track loaded internally and press play, or master deck 1 and press play on the CDJs,
1, 2, 3, 4.
You can see it starts generating reference time code. And of course, it's going to start spewing an LTC signal out of the speakers. This is happening because under Utility and Audio, LTC master output is enabled, and the MacBook speakers are the selected audio device. This setting directly enables the output of the master slot we were talking about earlier, and this audio tab is primarily used to configure LTC signals. Getting this master output signal to Resolume is trivial. I will be using a Focusrite and a wrench to 3.5 cable. Now I'm going to plug the interface into the back of the Resolume machine and plug the audio cable into the headphone jack of the Mac. Now, depending on the I/O of your interface, you can choose whatever port will work best for your cable. I'm going to be using port 2. Once this is done, you can open Resolume. If you go into Arena Preferences and click on Audio, you can set the audio input device to the Scarlett. You want to make sure that Resolume's timecode frame rate matches whatever you have in ShowKontrol. If I go into Utility and Global, you can see under SMPTE mode, I'm set at 30, which matches what I have here in Resolume. Also pop over to the Audio tab, and under LTC Master Out, you want to select Headphones. Since we now have this cable plugged into the headphone jack leading to the Focusrite, the SMPTE signal is now going to be piped to Resolume. Under either SMPTE timecode input 1 or 2, you want to select the channel that you plugged the audio cable into. You can see here I'm plugged into channel 2, so I have channel 2 selected. Now if you go to View, Show SMPTE, you will get this clock that appears. And if I press play on the CDJ, you can see that the Resolume clock is synced with ShowKontrol and synced with the CDJ. Another thing I want to note is you want to make sure you are checking your audio levels both on the interface, within Resolume, and in the Mac settings. Since it's an audio signal, if you clip, you can distort. Here you have an option to offset the incoming timecode with a delay. When this whole operation is scaled up to a real-world show, latency can really become noticeable. And in most gigs I have gone across the US, I've noticed 9 to 10 milliseconds delay, usually what I end up using. Before recording this video, I prepared a piece of audio and video in Premiere Pro that are the exact same length and synced.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
As you can see, the visual matches the vocal. I separated the video and the audio and put the audio through RECORDBOX, threw it on the USB, and converted the video to DXV. Now we could drop that into Resolume. If you highlight the clip text, the clip panel will pop up, and you can see the transport mode is under timeline. If we switch that to SMPTE 1, because we had set SMPTE timecode input 1 instead of 2, You can see the transport mode is now set to SMPTE1. What this will do is set your clip timeline to follow the incoming SMPTE timecode. So if I highlight the clip and press play on the CDJ,
3 4 1 2 3 4.
Now Resolume is following just fine. You may have noticed there's an option for offsetting the timeline. If you set the offset to 1 hour and jump back into ShowKontrol, you can assign an offset to layer A or B. So if we offset layer A by 1 hour and press play on the CDJ,
2 3 4 1 2 3 4.
Now offsets are useful because they help you to differentiate tracks. If every time-coded clip in Resolume was set to a 0 offset, there is a chance the wrong clip can trigger. Now if you have every song separated on an offset, song 1, 1 hour, song 2, 2 hour, song 3, 3 hour, and so on, then none of the clips can launch unless their respective song is being played. You can actually set up offsets in the Program tab. Now under Set List, you can add new tracks. Click the gear icon, load the same file that will be loaded into the CDJ, our 1, 2, 3, 4 test audio, no metadata, and again, this track name needs to be identical to the file that is going to be played on the CDJ. And there are some characters that it doesn't play nice with. But artist name does not matter. We could set a track color for identification. And let's go ahead and set this to 2 hours. When we jump back into the Live tab and click play on the CDJ, you can see that it has applied the 2 hour offset. And the stream that will be sent to Resolume will now be 2 hours. On Mac, the process is really similar. If you were using a separate MacBook from the ShowKontrol machine, the setup is basically identical. You plug in the interface, connect ShowKontrol headphones out to the interface, set it up in Resolume preferences, and you're good to go. If you are running Resolume together with ShowKontrol on the same machine, you will need a virtual audio loopback driver. I use BLACKHOLE, and that's what I'd recommend you go with. The download link and the instructions on how to install will be in the description. Once you have installed BLACKHOLE, you can go to the Utility tab, click Audio, and set the LTC master out to BLACKHOLE. Now you can head to Resolume and open the audio preferences. You want to set your input channel device to BLACKHOLE. Make sure your frame rate matches whatever is in ShowKontrol, and set input 1 to input 1. And we'll do this because in ShowKontrol, you can see we're outputting to channel 1. We can show SMPTE again, and if we press play on the CDJs, you can see the signal is a little too loud, so we'll have to go into ShowKontrol, turn it down, and now you can see we have Resolume synced up on the same machine. Now that we are able to ingest SMPTE timecode into Resolume, let's switch gears. Since TCNet is a digital Ethernet protocol, we will no longer need the interface. So I'm done with that now. And you can plug the cable from headphone jack. We could set that off to the side, and now I'm going to bring in another Ethernet cable and an adapter. I want to quickly mention that you absolutely can send SMPTE, TCNet, and OSC simultaneously, so we could have kept the interface plugged in. I wanted to remove it from the equation, so setting up TCNet and OSC is just more straightforward. There really isn't too many circumstances where you would need to send all 3 protocols, but it is possible. Now, instead of using an interface to send an audio signal to Resolume, we will be using an Ethernet cable to send TCNet to the Resolume machine. So we can now take this cable. I'm going to plug it in to the back of the Resolume machine. and connect it up to the Resolume machine via the adapter. Now on the Resolume machine, you can navigate to the control panel, go to Network and Internet, Network and Sharing Center, and change adapter settings on the left. Now select the NIC that your new cable is plugged into. I'm not using an adapter on this one, so it's the only one. Double click, go into Properties, and you want to go to IPv4 and double click. Normally this will be set on obtain an IP address automatically. You're going to want to change it to use following IP address. Now the range that you can use is 192.168.10.3 for the Resolume machine, and then set the subnet masks to 255.255.255.0. You could click OK, OK, close, and close out of both of these. On the ShowKontrol machine, go into Settings, click on Network, and you can see this self-assigned IP is the Ethernet cable that we have plugged in to the CDJ. I have this pre-configured, so you can see B is connected. If you normally click in and go to Details, you will, under TCP and IP, be set to using DHCP. If you select manually, you can type in the same range, 192.168.10, but now you want to do 7 to differentiate the two machines. Also use 255.255.255.0. You can exit out of that and open up ShowKontrol. Now you want to select the Network tab and go to TCNet. Under Interface, you want to make sure you select the NIC that has the custom IP that you selected. Make sure the node mode is set to master, and you have options reverse output enable selected. Under TCNet info, you see we have online and one device, which is the ShowKontrol machine. If we jump back into Resolume and open the general preferences, at the bottom where it says network interface, you want to make sure the NIC with the custom IP is selected. In the View tab, you can now enable Show Pioneer DJ TCNet, and then you could see Player 1 is populated. Another side note is you can modify actually what will show up in this player list by jumping into ShowKontrol, and under TCNet and Network Routing, you could set up what you need, and you could see as I change, it will modify on the fly. Since I only have one deck plugged in, I will set TCNet out layer 1 to deck 1, and you can see here I have the one deck. Traditionally, you would want something like that. Note that this will not work with tracks that you are loading internally versus from ProDJ. TCNet wants to see the ProLink connection to be able to interface with other programs. You could see that here player 2 is showing up because I have something loaded internally, but if I go back to ProLink, it will follow my settings that I have set here. And since we only have one thing loaded up, one thing will pop. Now we could drag our TC clip back into Resolume. And what you could do is you could either highlight the text, change the transport mode to Pioneer DJ, or you can grab the deck and drop it on top of the clip and it will change it. You can choose what player you want it to launch with. If you have it set to player 4, for example, this clip will not launch unless the song is loaded onto player 4. So for most cases, you'll want it set to any. Layer opacity is an interesting one. I do not have a mixer to demonstrate this with, but when enabled, it will link the faders to the layer opacity. So if a clip is highlighted because it is loaded onto the CDJ, then the opacity of the video fader will match that of the mixer fader. And as you can see, you can also add an offset. One other thing to note is the title or file needs to be identical to whatever the title name of the track that is being loaded into the CDJ. So if using this method, I would recommend getting a copy of all the songs to base all the names. And you can see here in Resolume, I do not have the clip selected. You can select this box here. Now the cool thing about TCNet is when I press play on the CDJs,
1, 2, 3, 4.
It will automatically highlight the clip and follow. So TCNet in a way really combines the benefits of OSC and SMPTE. Now you can see I try to click away, but it will keep the clip highlighted for as long as the track is loaded on the CDJs. Now something to note is you do have to be careful about two tracks on the exact same layer that are both being played at the same time. You can run into complications, and if you know two tracks are going to be played within the same time range, put them on two separate layers. Now to get this working on Mac, we can jump into Resolume, go to the general preferences, and make sure we just have the same NIC selected. As you can see, I unplugged the Resolume machine, so I just selected this NIC, and I know that ShowKontrol is selected at that. We go and check network, TCNet, there it is, and now you can see the deck in there. Now normally this would be done through localhost. Since OSC is also an Ethernet based network protocol, we will be using a cat cable again. Plugged in to the back of the Resolume machine and connected to the ShowKontrol machine via an adapter. We'll jump into the control panel, network and internet, network and sharing center, change adapter settings, and click on the NIC you used. You can go into properties, IPv4, and instead of obtain an IP address automatically, we'll use the following IP address. And you are okay to use the 192.168.10.3 for this machine, 255.255.255.0 for the subnet. Close out of all this. And in Resolume, we want to go into our preferences, jump down to OSC, make sure OSC input is enabled. We can also open this monitor to watch any incoming feed. Over on the ShowKontrol machine, we want to jump into settings, jump into network, and click on the connected adapter, which, since the connection to the CDJs is a self-assigned IP, it's going to be B. Now since Resolume is at 192.168.10.3, we are okay to use 192.168.10.7 and the same subnet mask. We can select details, go to TCP and IP, and set that manually. Now in ShowKontrol, you'll go to Network, OSC, and make sure OSC output is enabled. You want to make sure that your target IP is set to the same IP as your Resolume machine. So we'll change that now. 10.3. And the ports must also match. So now that we've set up the network, we can get into the queuing system. We can jump into the program tab and under set list, add a new track. Let's add our audio file. making sure it is the exact same audio that is going to be played on the CDJ. And of course, the name has to perfectly match. Artist name does not matter. Set a track color for organization, and we can set an offset if we would like. Now, you can click this button and it will jump you into the cue list for this particular song. If we click New Cue, drop down the cogwheel, and select OSC out under the plus, we can see it requires an OSC string. We can find out what string we need by heading back into Resolume, clicking Control-Shift-O or Command-Shift-O, and selecting whatever you want to trigger. If we want to trigger column 7, you can see /composition, columns 7, connect. So we'll type that in. And we can apply a flow value of 1, see here. Now to test that this is working, we can click this play button, and as you can see, it is triggering column 7. You can also jump into the preferences, OSC, and open up this monitor that will show you all of the incoming messages. Now you can also add an offset to this cue. If we want this to trigger at 10 seconds, we set the offset to 10. Now I usually like to add a cue at the very beginning, right at 0, 0. And you don't even need to add a command, but it is best practice to start with a 0, 0 command on any track. And now if we make sure the track is mastered and play it on the CDJs, you can see a countdown begins. We're not on 7. And there it goes. And if we actually run that back, we could even throw in a solid color. And let's run it again. There it goes. And like I said, this can be used to trigger a multitude of things within Resolume and automate. Instead of baking a clip like we did earlier that has full synchronization with the audio, you could take a solid color, get a text animator, title is 1, duplicate that, change the numbers, and also a quick note, Control-Shift or Command-Shift-T will quickly update your thumbnail. Change the color. There we go. Now, you can try to fiddle around by jumping your cue up in some metrics to try to get it right on time, but I would recommend loading your audio into something like Premiere Pro. Now we could drag that audio into Premiere, make sure our sequence settings is set at 30 frames, and we could grab some cues. So it sounds like 1 is at 2 frames. So we can leave this as our 0 cue. Do this as 1. Set it to 2 frames. We could actually copy this, create a new queue, plus OSC out, paste this, make it 8, float of 1, we'll call this 2, and 2 more times, we'll make this 9, 1, we can call this 3, we'll make this one 10 and call it 4. Now, if we jump back into Premiere,
1, 2, 3,
you can see 2 is at 13 frames. So let's go ahead and do that. 3 is at 23.
4,
And 4 is at 1 second, 5 frames. And now we can deselect in Resolume and launch on the CDJs. This is just a whole nother look on how you can program elements in a show. Do you want it trigger based or timeline based? OSC is great because with the proper setup, you can completely automate every piece of the production. It is a lot more of a complex process if you are building cues in ShowKontrol, but you can also have a guarantee that things will work. Now you really can start to get into some dangerous territory if you're not careful with OSC. If the wrong track is mastered in the SMPTE master deck during the cue trigger, it will not fire. The track has to be mastered, and there's a few ways you could actually go about solving that problem. You can go into Utility, Global, and under Auto Master, you have a few options. Disabled is manual. You have to select what track is mastered. Nothing influences it but your button presses. Link Master. Whatever deck is mastered will be the deck that pops up in the master slot. So if I had 2 decks here and I was swapping from master to master to master, you would see these 2 jump into the SMPTE slot back and forth. The third option is HTP master. I also cannot demonstrate this because I do not have a mixer, but HTP master will say whatever fader on the mixer is loudest will be master. So if deck 3 is the loudest, it will be in master. And when you do have a mixer plugged in, this deck 3 to 1 and 4 slot will start to fill up red as the fader opacity goes up. You can see I have the link symbol here indicating I have the 1 CDJ plugged in, but I still don't get fader opacity or a few other items due to the fact that there is no mixer. Another thing you can do to mitigate this master problem, set it in disable and use MIDI input. This is what I carry on tour and it has been perfect for me. Just plug it into the ShowKontrol machine. We'll open the Elgato Stream Deck app. And under the settings cogwheel plugins, I have added this plugin called MIDI Button by Tom Kelly. It's been fantastic, works every time. When you add this, you can drag a MIDI button into one of your slots and assign it a channel and a velocity. I named it Deck 1 and added a picture from the deck icon library. Deck 2, different MIDI note, 3 and 4 different MIDI note, and I also set up a button for master and clock. Now if we jump back into ShowKontrol, hop into utility, MIDI in, we can see it's now MIDI source because it's pushing MIDI. Enable MIDI mode, and under the MIDI mapping, you can add mappings. If I wanted a mapping for freewheel, I would click it, make sure it's highlighted, and then select a button to assign. I have done this for everything I need, and if we go to the main menu, you can see I can jump between different masters, and I could select the clock as well. So if you want to swap tracks manually, this is the way to go. One last thing I want to touch on is ProDjLink Bridge. This is a tool made by Pioneer as a way to link up the decks with external production hardware. It uses ProLink and TCNet. It has a very basic interface. For ProLink, you want to make sure the interface that is connected to the CDJs, our red cable, is selected. You will see the CDJ populate. And for TCNet, you want to make sure that the interface that either your Resolume machine or your internal Resolume is connected to. And once that happens, you will see decks in Resolume here, just the same way we did with TCNet. And it works identically to TCNet. You could drag it onto a clip, or you can change it to Pioneer DJ. And making sure the track name is identical to whatever's plugged into the CDJ, offsets are correct, it will work identically to ShowKontrol's TCNet method. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for this video. I really hope that you found this useful. On my own personal production journey, I've come to learn that a lot of information about timecode and ShowKontrol itself is really mystified, and there's not really that great of documentation. And really that was the motivation for me to start this channel, to be able to demystify and put that information out there in the ways that people have for me. This is just the start of a very larger upcoming series about how to use ShowKontrol and how to interface it with other programs. Some other ideas I have that are on the back burner are a history of ShowKontrol as a concept, understanding hardware specs, understanding Resolume, Resolume Advanced Output Complete Guide. I'd be interested in talking about syncing ShowKontrol with Beyond, MA, providing a full ShowKontrol breakdown, rewriting the manual, and explaining sync on a tour, if any of that sounds interesting to you guys. And if you guys have any ideas for some videos that I can make in the future, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Thanks so much again for watching. I'll see you next time.